What's the secret? I don't know.
You don't know.
I have no idea. I still exercise. I go to the gym, and I think that has something.
At 99, he finally decided enough was enough. He dropped the names of 6 actors he couldn't stand anymore. These weren't just co-workers. They were once his closest friends, even a former flame. But when fame, ego, and power got in the way, everything fell apart. They shut him out of projects he helped bring to life, and the humiliation that followed left scars he never forgot. Once you hear what they did to him, you'll get exactly why he never forgave them. And then comes the shocker: Walt Disney himself, the mentor who discovered him and later let him crash hard. COULDN Dick Van Dyke opened up about the one person he resented the most. People couldn't believe it. Walt Disney? The same man who gave him his first big break, the same man the world treats like a legend. That's what made the betrayal sting even more. Dick never thought the person he looked up to the most would be the one to turn his back on him. Behind the scenes of Mary Poppins, the truth wasn't all smiles and magic. Dick wasn't treated like the star we see today. He had to fight for that spot. He practically begged Disney to let him audition for Mr. Dawes Sr., even writing his own personal check just to prove he was serious. People in the studio whispered that he was trying too hard, that he didn't belong in a major movie. Every day, every rehearsal, Dick felt that pressure crushing him, and it nearly broke him. Dick kept asking if his accent sounded right or if he needed to fix it. He was desperate for any kind of guidance. Walt Disney stood just a few feet away, silently watching, offering absolutely nothing. Later, Dick said, "I kept waiting for someone to say something, anybody, but the room stayed dead quiet. That silence hit him like a punch. It crushed his confidence completely." When Mary Poppins premiered, the critics didn't hold back. They shredded him. Headlines mocked his voice, calling it the strangest accent ever attempted on film. Dick waited for Walt to step in, not to apologize, but just to tell the truth, that he never got proper coaching, that he was thrown into it all alone. But Disney stayed quiet again, not a single word of defense. Dick carried that silence with him for decades, and it haunted him. He always gave Walt credit for opening the door that started his career, but deep down he could never forgive him for leaving him to burn in public like that. And then there was Mary Tyler Moore, the name that still makes his voice crack whenever it comes up. Not because she betrayed him, but because she stirred something inside him he'd tried so hard to bury. What started as chemistry on screen soon turned into something messy, emotional, and unforgettable. He once joked that he could never forgive himself for the feelings he carried for her, and that's exactly where all the tension came from. When the Dick Van Dyke Show kicked off in 1961, the spark between them was impossible to miss. The whole cast saw it instantly. Dick would light up the second Mary walked into the room. His smile, his energy, even the way he stood, everything changed. The crew teased him nonstop, saying, "Man, you stand taller when she's around." And Mary, just 25 and full of that effortless charm, had everyone captivated without even trying. But what the cameras didn't catch were the nights Dick went home torn apart by guilt. He was a married man, yet he couldn't get her out of his mind, no matter how hard he tried. Those feelings ate at him, especially during moments that felt too real. One late-night rehearsal pushed him over the edge. Mary flubbed a line and broke into a fit of laughter, and Dick joined in. But then he stopped cold, realizing what was happening inside him. That spark scared him. It was the kind of feeling that usually leads straight into an affair, and he knew it. Years later, Mary herself admitted, "The amazing thing is we never had an affair. I always thought it was a terrible waste." That one line revealed everything. The tension wasn't imagined. It was painfully real. After that, Mary's fame skyrocketed. Awards, magazine covers, nonstop praise. She became untouchable, the nation's sweetheart. And Dick? He was left trying to act like he didn't still love her, pretending those feelings had faded when they hadn't. That's why the resentment lingered. He was furious that he couldn't be the man she needed, and even angrier that he never stopped wanting her. Have you ever had someone walk out of your life so suddenly that you can still hear the door slam decades later? That's exactly how Dick Van Dyke described the moment everything shattered between him and Carl Reiner. On the outside, they looked like a dream team, the creator and the star. Genius and charm perfectly matched, but behind the scenes, it wasn't harmony. It was a quiet war for control. The tension between them ran deep, so deep that Dick carried that sting long after the cameras stopped rolling. When the Dick Van Dyke Show began, Dick was Carl's hand-picked lead, his golden choice. But that feeling of being chosen didn't last long. Cast members later said Dick would vent quietly during lunch, whispering how every creative move had to pass through Carl first. He once confessed in private, "I was the star of a show that didn't belong to me." That wasn't ego talking. It was exhaustion. It was suffocation. The breaking point finally came with the new Dick Van Dyke Show in 1971. Dick thought this would be a new chapter, a chance to breathe, to finally have creative space after years of feeling boxed in. But then CBS dropped the hammer. They pulled an episode Carl had written about a sensitive family issue. The network freaked out, calling it too risky for television. That decision didn't just kill an episode, it cracked the last bit of trust between Dick and Carl forever. Carl didn't just get mad, he exploded, and the next morning he was gone. No warning, no goodbye, nothing. Dick showed up to set, ready to work, and a production assistant broke the news. Carl had quit. That humiliation cut deep, like a public breakup he never saw coming. Without Carl, the show unraveled fast, and somehow Dick got stuck with the blame for a disaster he didn't cause. Years later, they reunited over dinners and smiles, talking about the good old days. But underneath that laughter, the wound never really healed. Dick still respected Carl as the genius who shaped his career, but he couldn't erase the fact that his mentor, the man who built him up, also walked away when he needed him most. Then came Rose Marie, the fourth name on Dick's list. And this one stings in a quieter way. Their tension wasn't explosive. It simmered slowly, hidden under all the laughter, timing, and punchlines. When Rose first joined the Dick Van Dyke Show, she expected to be the female standout. She had the experience, the timing, the stage instincts. She believed she had earned that spotlight long before the network even knew her name. Dick got that. He admired her confidence. But everything changed the moment Mary Tyler Moore's popularity took off like a rocket. Crew members remembered that shift like it was yesterday. Suddenly, the script started giving Mary more emotional scenes, more comedy moments, more camera time. And Rose felt that power tilt immediately. At first, she kept quiet, trying to play it cool. But by the third month, the change was impossible to miss. During table reads, her smile faded. She stopped laughing at jokes that weren't hers, and the set that once felt like family started to feel like a quiet competition. Rose started showing her frustration in quiet, sharp ways. She'd scribble hard in the margins of her script, pressing the pen so deep it almost tore the page. Some nights, she'd wrap early and walk out without saying a single goodbye, not even to Dick. The real breaking point came during season 3. After one taping, Dick walked up to her, all smiles, to compliment her improv that had the whole audience roaring. But before he could finish, she cut him off cold and said sharply, "It won't matter. They only write to make her look good." Then she turned and walked away before he could even respond. That moment stuck with Dick. He never forgot the sting of it. The strange part, Rose didn't actually hate Mary. What she really hated was the feeling of being replaced, like her spark had been quietly pushed aside for someone newer, shinier. And since Dick was the lead, the one with the voice on set, she quietly blamed him for not standing up for her, for letting that balance slip away. But the second those cameras stopped rolling, the whole room went cold. Fast. Dick later admitted that the tension had drained the fun right out of days that were supposed to be filled with laughter. And just when you think his list of heartbreaks couldn't get any deeper, there's Phil Erickson, the partner who vanished without a single goodbye. Phil might not have been famous, but his impact on Dick ran deeper than any Hollywood scandal. In fact, Phil was the one who delivered the first emotional blow of Dick's life. Dick never tried to sugarcoat it. Phil didn't just leave. He disappeared. And that silence, that sudden emptiness, changed the way Dick trusted people forever. This was long before television, before Mary Poppins, before the fame. Back in 1947, Dick was just a restless young guy running a small morning radio show, cracking jokes and keeping himself entertained with nothing but his voice and raw timing. Then one day, Phil Erickson walked into that studio, watched Dick goof off behind the mic, and made a life-changing offer. "You and I should team up." That single sentence lit the fuse. Within weeks, the two were performing as Eric and Van, a wild comedy duo known as the Merry Mutes. They lip-synced to old records, invented their own routines in tiny dressing rooms, and worked brutal 5-show nights like two soldiers fighting the same uphill battle. People close to them said Phil wasn't just a partner, he was Dick's creative compass, the one who gave him direction when no one else believed in his dream. Phil was more than just a partner, he was a teacher. He showed Dick how to hold a pose, how to build a silent gag, and how to sell a joke without even saying a word. Dick once told a friend, "Phil was the first person who believed I could make it." And that wasn't nostalgia. That was the truth. But all of that came crashing down in 1953. Dick arrived for rehearsal in Atlanta, costume neatly pressed, routine locked in his memory, ready to hit the stage like always. But when he looked over, Phil's chair was empty. At first, everyone assumed he was just running late. Dick waited, pacing, checking his watch, hoping. Then a stagehand quietly walked over and handed him a folded note. Inside, just a few short words. Phil had quit. He wasn't coming back. He wasn't even performing anymore. He'd already left town. That moment hit Dick like a gut punch. The partnership that built his confidence, his rhythm, his drive, ended without a word, without a goodbye. It ripped something out of him, something he never got back. After that, Dick stumbled through a rough stretch, bouncing from failed game shows to tiny guest roles, trying to rebuild what he lost the night Phil walked away forever. Phil didn't just break Dick's heart, he shattered his foundation. And no matter how much success came later, Dick never rebuilt it the same way again. Now you've heard them all. The 6 names Dick Van Dyke kept buried for nearly a century. The betrayals that crushed him, the heartbreaks that haunted him, and the moments that almost destroyed everything he built. Each name carried its own sting, its own secret wound that fame could never fully hide. So tell me, which one shocked you the most? Which story made you see these Hollywood icons in a whole new light? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, and make sure you subscribe, because the next story dives even deeper into the hidden drama and untold betrayals behind Hollywood's brightest smiles. You won't want to miss what's coming next.